Good morning, and Tina Corto from Miami, Florida. I'd like to thank ITS New Zealand for this invitation to speak with all of you today and for putting together such an impactful conference. I know that you are a powerful voice for transportation excellence, advocating for systems that are safe, responsive, equitable, and well-funded. Also, I'm truly honored to be following Transport Minister Michael Wood in this program because strong leadership and sound strategy are essential to ensuring that our transportation systems can meet the challenges of this new century. This pandemic has really driven home the importance of a resilient transportation system to a thriving society. So I applaud each and every one of you as you work to envision and create infrastructure to sustain us now and to take us into the future. We're entering an era in which the work we do can have a greater impact than ever before. It requires a higher level of creativity and collaboration as we explore new paradigms and approaches. We all will need to put our best ideas out there, to engage in spirited debates, to experiment and invent, to try different solutions, to share what works and learn from what doesn't. In the transportation arena in the US, we expect a laser-like focus on innovation in the coming years. From our small towns to our major cities, at every level of government and across the private sector, everyone's working together to drive change. Let's take a look at what's happening. I'd like to start with significant changes at the federal level. The Biden administration is acting on a number of federal priorities, including in the transportation arena. Before getting to those, I want to drill into two areas, the dollars and the doers. By that, I mean federal spending on transportation and the leaders who are driving change. So let's start with the dollars, which we all know can be a moving target. Right now in the US, there's political support for strengthening the transportation system. At the same time, there are major question marks about how we proceed, such as how much can the country invest in this priority? Where should the funding focus? On transit, bridges, or roads, rural or urban infrastructure, emerging technologies? And how will we pay for these investments? That's always a tough one. The Biden administration and colleagues in Congress continue to deliberate their respective proposals. But as of now, we expect to see a significant increase in overall federal spending in transportation. In addition to possible funding increases, we're seeing transformational changes at the US Department of Transportation. The new leaders there have experience with urban mobility, so we expect a major emphasis on cities. Secretary Buttigieg was mayor of South Bend, Indiana, which was once seen as a declining city. Mayor Pete revitalized South Bend through mobility, launching a smart streets initiative, improving the intercity train system and airport, and pursuing other initiatives. Deputy Secretary Polly Trottenberg spent 7 years as head of New York City's DOT, where she invested in more transit access, bike lanes, and pedestrian plazas. Another major focus was Vision Zero in New York City, which aims to reduce traffic crashes and fatalities. These leaders and many others at the US DOT will be champions for a new mobility vision in America. So where will these leaders focus? 3 themes are emerging. These may look familiar to you. Now, many conference speakers like to provide an easy to remember framework. So here's mine, the 3 E's. These 3 concepts work together to align US transportation priorities and spending to serve the needs of everyday people while also focusing on the future. US federal transportation leaders are prioritizing these themes based on their convictions regarding climate change and social justice. They intend to shape the future of the country by changing transportation policy from the top. So let's start with the environment. President Biden has set a goal for the US to achieve net zero emissions economy-wide by no later than 2050. He took a page right out of New Zealand's net zero playbook, right? Importantly, the US transportation sector would have to contribute a major share of that reduction. Secretary Buttigieg recently spoke about the need to improve transportation's climate profile. He has also said that electric vehicles, public transit, rail, road redesign for pedestrians, and sustainable, innovative materials will all be keys to reducing reliance on fossil fuels. Here's the challenge. This chart shows how transportation matches up against other greenhouse gas emitting sectors in the US. As you know, many believe that such emissions are contributing to severe weather events around the world. Fuel burning engines in trains, planes, and automobiles are driving these emissions. So we can't do things the way we have in the past in order to reach the goal of zero, which brings us to our next E. Electrification will be a big part of the drive to a zero carbon economy. The administration wants to accelerate America's vehicle charging capabilities by installing 500,000 more EV chargers. This is a major step and one that will require us to create a more resilient electrical grid to handle the demand. Some cities in the US are already starting to transition to all electric transit fleets. One example is in New York City. The new Port Authority bus terminal will be designed to serve an electric bus fleet. They might even install inductive charging pads for buses to use as they queue up near the terminal. More broadly, the US population needs to increase adoption of EVs, and we'll see incentives for this as well. As you can see in this chart, adoption rates now are quite low, but they are expected to rise sharply, reaching 10% of all US new vehicle sales by 2025. American automakers are embracing this challenge as well. One example is General Motors. GM made a big splash during the last Super Bowl with a commercial featuring comedian Will Ferrell. He was confronting Norway because it's beating the US in adoption of electric cars. GM intends to be a leader in the electric vehicle space with an aim to produce 30 new electric vehicle models globally by 2025. And they said they'll make only electric vehicles by 2035. Not to be outdone, Ford Motor Company introduced an electric version of their popular F-150 truck in May, and they got their own celebrity endorsement. President Biden himself took the new truck for a spin to emphasize America's intent to embrace an electric vehicle future. The third E in our trio of major themes is equity. It's part of a paradigm shift taking place across virtually every area of American society, and which has become a global phenomenon. A year ago, the death of George Floyd in Minneapolis, Minnesota, accelerated the movement to advance equity in the US. Across the nation, government agencies of all kinds began implementing equitable planning, especially in urban areas. Among the leaders of many transportation agencies, the mindset has shifted from thinking primarily about commuters to thinking about residents and how to create opportunities, address gaps, and create a better quality of life. That's why many US transportation experts are working with cities to improve how we meet residents' mobility needs. And we're doing this through greater choice, redesigned transit networks, and new land use policies that broaden public use of streets beyond vehicular traffic. The Biden administration has put out a mandate for the federal government to rethink how it invests in a range of government projects to help improve the lives in disadvantaged communities. The aim is to deliver 40% of the benefits of relevant federal investments to underserved communities. This is more than just a goal. They'll be tracking performance through an environmental justice scorecard. This means measurement and accountability. This will impact funding, project prioritization, and decision-making throughout the federal government, and it will affect virtually all U.S. transportation projects in the future. Beyond Justice 40, there's a new executive order that instructs the Office of Management and Budget to audit all federal agencies to ensure that they are benefiting underserved communities. So, equity considerations are and will continue to be extremely important for those of us who work on transportation initiatives in the U.S. One final point on equity. We, all of us, will be leading the transportation revolution around the world. And it will require the best ideas and insights from a broad variety of people. The ITS regions have shown that we are willing to lead in bringing diverse ideas to the table to shape our industry's future. There are many possibilities for increasing the participation of a diverse range of people in our industry, so they can help us make transportation more responsive, accessible, and affordable. One group that has been underrepresented in the US transportation is women, who make up less than 15% of the transportation workforce and even less at the CEO and C-suite level. To address this challenge, as well as the specific mobility challenges facing women, ITS America, the WTS International Foundation, and the RAY have collaborated on an initiative called MobilityXX. The initiative has established a goal called 10 in 10. It aims to increase the percentage of women in our industry by 10% in 10 years. I'm proud to serve on the steering committee of MobilityXX to help advance that goal, along with other women in transportation leadership positions in the public and private sectors. It's important to note that a broad group of industry organizations are making diversity and inclusion a priority. The momentum is growing, and it's very exciting. As these important 3 E's, environment, electrification, and equity, are being advanced at the federal, state, and local levels, we are also seeing continued innovations that are helping us rethink how we deliver mobility for everyone. Let's look at a handful of these exciting innovations. This past November, humans rode for the first time in a Virgin Hyperloop vehicle. Granted, this was inside a test track in the Nevada desert, but it indicates how close we are to a non-airborne transportation option that moves people at the speed of sound. The goal is to prove that the concept works and is safe for human travel. Last summer, Hyperloop got a boost from regulatory guidance issued by the US DOT and the Net Council. In essence, Hyperloop now falls in the same category as high-speed rail, so it's eligible for federal funding. The Nevada experimenters hope to be certified for operation by 2030. By the way, they and a competitor are looking at an opportunity right here in my backyard to create Hyperloop services running from Tampa to South Florida. Other projects are also in the works, notably a highly ambitious vision for a Great Lakes Hyperloop that would whisk passengers and goods between Chicago, Cleveland, and Pittsburgh in just minutes rather than hours. This latter proposal would have the Hyperloop capsule traveling underground for about 3/4 of the distance. This would greatly reduce issues relating to safety and efficiency, because weather impacts and rail and road crossings would be greatly reduced. According to a recent feasibility study, the system would be very competitively priced for moving freight, offering a price of about 10 cents per ton mile compared to 37 cents for trucks and $4.60 for airplanes. Public acceptance would likely be high too, because the system would charge passenger fees similar to those of other modes, and the construction could be potentially completed without requiring taxpayer dollars. In February, Elon Musk told Miami Mayor Francis Suarez that he had a way to solve one of the city's worst traffic congestion issues. He said that his tunneling firm, the Boring Company, would dig a 2-mile tunnel under the city and provide other support from Tesla to essentially create an underground ferry system for travelers. Musk said he could build this tunnel in 6 months for $30 million for use exclusively with electric vehicles. Compare this to existing transit tunnel estimates of 4 years and $1 billion in the same location. If we do the math, that's a projected savings of $970 million delivered in 1/8 of the time. Mr. Musk had similar conversations with officials from Fort Lauderdale and Broward County, and he's really turning heads. While additional factors could certainly increase these tunnel estimates, this concept of underground electric-powered transport could be a game changer. It could ease traffic congestion in major cities at a much lower cost and with zero emissions. While Elon Musk is trying to go deep, many other innovators are aiming for the skies. Advanced air mobility will come into its own this decade. In the US, freight is leading the way with drone delivery services taking shape, such as UPS Flight Forward, Amazon Prime Air, Zipline, and many others. Such companies that are moving goods will establish a safety and reliability record that creates a pathway for transporting people. As a result, passenger services will be taking flight at some point soon in the US in the form of electric vertical takeoff and landing vehicles, or eVTOLs. Now, New Zealand has set the bar pretty high for the rest of us through your airspace integration trials program. Many of us are watching Wisk's Cora to learn from its experiences and innovations. It's impressive that you are going straight to autonomous eVTOLs, which will tell and test that concept not only for your country, but for the world. So we salute you for your trailblazing spirit. Thank you for that. Meanwhile, for initial launches in the US, several major companies are testing piloted eVTOL vehicles with the intention of offering commercial services within the next 3 to 5 years. Government agencies, including NASA, the FAA, and the US Air Force, are adding to this momentum. Cities are also a major catalyst, and leaders are taking initiative to understand how aerial concepts can integrate with other transportation modes as they think through such issues as zoning and audible and visual noise. Like electric vehicles, the eVTOL concept will require major investments to create a support infrastructure, namely vertiports, to serve and recharge these vehicles. This is not just some futuristic idea. Here in Florida right now, major cities are working on plans for a network of vertiports. eVTOL companies are also forming partnerships with parking garage operators looking for innovative ways to repurpose their asset. This is happening right here in Miami and in other cities as Reef Technologies prepares parking garage landing assets to support Joby Aviation's eVTOLs. So the point here is that we all are thinking in an entirely new dimension, and it's very exciting. Let's not forget that data will bind together all of these technologies. Data integration is the key to more efficient mobility systems and more livable communities. Fortunately, all around the world, we're seeing great innovations in transportation data collection, analysis, and distribution. Here in the US, Central Ohio is deploying a new regional cloud-based traffic management system that uses artificial intelligence. It will be the largest such system in the country and will allow transit agencies, counties, and public safety groups to share, view, and react to real-time traffic information on one platform. In Arizona, they're deploying smart technology that autonomously operates traffic light grids and distinguishes between bikes, pedestrians, and vehicles. Ultimately, it will use AI to predict movements and issue alerts to connected vehicles and devices. These are just some of hundreds of such initiatives across the US. Around the world in the years ahead, we will see rapid innovation in this area involving artificial intelligence, predictive analytics, autonomous traffic management, and other solutions that improve safety and efficiency. We are driving change in all its dimensions, and it's rather noble work. But we must always remember what originally propelled us, particularly the public sector, to get to where we are today, the promise of safety. I still remember the 2015 ITS World Congress when a US DOT leader spoke about encouraging innovation without overregulation. He shared astonishing statistics about road safety and the human factor. The number of traffic deaths annually on our roads in 2020, a COVID year, amounted to 40,000 people, that 94% of crashes were due to human error, and that we could reduce non-impaired traffic fatalities by more than 80% by fully implementing autonomous vehicles. The US and the world continue to move forward to achieve the Vision Zero promise and #1 priority, zero fatalities. When we keep this vision at the forefront of our work, we will earn the regulatory structures and public support to keep our momentum strong. We, all of us, will be leading the mobility revolution in our countries and by extension around the world. Rapid innovation will inspire us to step beyond our existing paradigms, to explore new approaches, to learn and apply new skills. 20 years from now, when we look at the infrastructure around us, we'll still see highways, airports, tunnels, and bridges, but we'll have employed bold leadership, diverse perspectives, and innovative technology to bring all of them together to improve safety, serve more people more effectively, embrace modal innovations, adapt and be more resilient, and make them future-proof. It's our responsibility and our privilege to envision, design, build, and optimize the mobility of the future. I look forward to working with you to create that future starting now. Thank you and enjoy the remainder of the conference.